It's funny that I'm calling you from Scotland because, as I understand it, you were raised on Scotland Island.
Yeah. Which is very different from Scotland.
I can imagine. Did you grow up there your whole life? Did you kind of stay in the same place, or did you move around a little bit?
No, but the first decade of our life, we grew up there. Yeah, I mean, we moved around as in we got off the island, but it was, there were no shops or anything. There were about 800 people living on that island. And we had a little tinny boat that we would race back and forth.
Take to school.
Took the ferry to school. It was pretty great. It was kind of hippie upbringing, and we would just leave home in the morning and run around as kids in the bush and bare feet and, come back that evening. And obviously no mobile phones. So it's just, your mum would just ring up a whole bunch of houses on the island and be like, "Has anyone seen Ollie and Louie?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I think I saw them down at the wharf, maybe 2 hours ago." And that's as much as you get. And then we'll just turn up. So it was pretty great.
It was feral. It was pretty feral.
Yeah.
Feral.
No one died. All right.
Yeah.
Where did you go after that? If you were there for the first 10 years?
We moved to the mainland, which is just normal living. But we would be like, "Oh yeah, can't wait to move on the mainland to be normal."
It was only 500 meters away from the kilometre away. Yeah. It's not super remote.
It just meant that we didn't have to get a ferry and a boat whenever we wanted to go anywhere. But yeah. It's just still pretty great on the northern beaches of Sydney, and we're sort of still there now. Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time overseas, a lot of touring, a bit of time in LA, but kind of never, apart from living in Sydney City, kind of been based out of here our whole lives. But we do have a place which is a farm, which Louie and I acquired last year in lockdown, which is quite nice, which is 6 hours north, and that's in the country Australians, mate. How you going?
You've got quite a lot of family over here as well, though, don't you? In the UK?
Yeah, mum's English. She's
Oxfordshire.
Most of them are in Cambridge now.
Cambridge, some in London.
Yeah,
and a few in Oxford.
Some in Kent.
Yeah,
Kent.
And then a few in other parts of Europe. So yeah, no, it's good. And we are planning to move over there in June, at least for 6 months. So we'll come back for the Australian summer and hopefully go back over there again. But yeah, we really want to have a bit of a sea change and be, just concentrate on a different part of the world. Like, we play music right down here in Australia, and it's going well. But we'd like to, try our luck, see if you English and Scottish and seem to dig the music.
I remember speaking to an Australian band, Tora, maybe about 6 months back or so, and they kind of did the same thing where they moved from Australia to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and they said they found it incredible, creatively, just the kind of possibilities that it opened up, just being in a new place and kind of surrounding yourself in a new culture.
Yeah, we know those guys a little bit. We actually spoke to them about that. It sounded pretty great, and I don't know, it's quite a scary move, just, moving to the other side of the world, and especially when you're trying to move the whole band and everything. So
probably be easy for those guys. They're also fucking good looking. So
the Tora guys,
they're all models, aren't they? Yeah.
More models than musicians.
I remember we did a photo shoot with them, and we were pretty new to, doing a fashion shoot, and they were all going,
pouting,
so good looking,
which they are. Naturally pout.
Yeah, us looking like sloppy boys next to them,
ragdolls.
Do you still stay in a house with 8 other people as well? We've still got quite a few housemates kicking about.
Yeah, that's this house. Actually.
Yeah, this one.
This is like an old helicopter hangar that we're in right now.
Nice.
Which is sort of our studio space. I'm actually not here. I've sort of moved down the road, but yeah, there's 8 people here and a million snakes and a bunch of redback spiders. I don't know if you know what they are, but they're not super nice. So
there's one here that I've just killed.
Yeah,
they will kill you.
Yeah, they're quite dangerous spiders. So it's a pretty weird studio to be in because it's like very cliched Australian studio. dodging spiders that'll kill you.
Big snake skins on the ceiling as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good spot. It's like, being able to have this space to be creative. Like in Sydney, we have house prices like London rental prices. So it's like it's hard to get a big space like this. So yeah, pretty lucky. But you do have to live with 8 people.
How do you find that creatively though? Can it be inspiring creatively to kind of be surrounded by people all the time and constantly have like stimulation socially going on?
Not really. It's probably more distracting, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like the isolation's probably the more creative way.
It's creative in the way that we live with 2 other photographers, and so there were some like chefs and people that do pottery. So there's people that are like always toying with things. So that's not everyone here just works at a bank. I mean, that would be pretty dull. But it's it's quite nice in that way.
One of the other things I wanted to ask about before we start digging into the new EP was Thrillsong, which I saw you posting about the other day. What is Thrillsong?
Thrillsong, it started by this other Australian artist, female artist called Jack River. Yeah, it was her idea, but with Hillsong. Do you have Hillsong in the UK?
No.
Hillsong is like a massive religious mega church, that Justin Bieber gets behind. I think it started in Australia. It's moved over and it's quite big in the States as well. But it's like these huge stadium church shows, and like they have youth centers and like shit everywhere. And it's like, incredibly religious.
Sort of 40% of your wage has to go to the Hillsong church.
Something like that. Yeah.
Jesus.
Part of it.
Feels like, yeah. It's, and whatever, some would say that, it's great in lots of ways, but I don't know. I don't think so personally. And it's obviously a lot of money goes to the government. So right now we're going back into a lockdown. A lot of people have cancelled shows. A lot of people have cancelled tours and festivals, and bars, restaurants, clubs have all shut down. Well, not restaurants, but, a lot of things have shut down. And then over the weekend, we see this massive festival going on thrown by Hillsong, and it's like all these kids praising Jesus, but, just really at the end of the day, it's a festival. It looked exactly like a festival. And so we started this super group band with a whole bunch of other artists, and we called it Thrillsong, and have joined forces to, really get the word out there and show people like what's going on and how hypocritical this is, because the government just turned a blind eye to that,
Yeah.
Sporting matches and religious events are allowed to go ahead whilst, all other musicians just lose their jobs for however long.
It's not so much a dig at the, religious organization as it is towards like the government sort of, contradicting themselves.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I always think of Australia as kind of the midway point between Britain and America in terms of culture and the kind of society and the way that Australians seem to be as people. When it comes to religion, does that feel like something that's kind of closer to America and the UK? Because the UK were kind of mostly atheists here at this point. It's kind of moving towards that.
That part of it, that's like, yeah.
I think it's pretty huge. Yeah, the religious side. We're pretty oblivious to it, but it's big.
Yeah, it's like we don't move in those circles, so it feels like it doesn't even exist. It's like in Sydney City, I'd say it's predominantly atheist. I don't know, agnostic at least or something. But it's like, but then you go slightly out to the west, and it feels like it is a huge thing. But yeah, we are a Christian nation, and a lot of money goes to the government, and it's just interesting.
Yeah,
it's quite frustrating, and it does make it feel quite Bible Belt American when something like that goes down. But other than that, don't really hear about it. A lot of bands come out of Hillsong. They obviously have an audience right there where they're just instant crowd, instant worshippers. All I want you to do is when you put your hands together, I want to take a little moment of silence, little moment of silence for Jesus. and buy my single.
When you say bands come out of Hillsong, is it religious bands or is it just kind of regular music?
Oh, Christian rock stuff, and then some of them like move transition over into the commercial market. But yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty tempted if someone was like, "Yeah, we'll pay for your record, and you can play in front of 1,000 people."
It's funny how is it just music, or what else is kind of outlawed at the minute? Then, because you can when you say they're putting on religious, festivals and sporting events. You understand it from the point of view of that's people's community and that's why they're leaving them on. But then why are they cutting out communities like music, and are other communities affected by it too? I
mean, I don't know. Our Australian music scene just gets like the shit end of the stick. It's like we're not a huge business, It's like it's an art form. There's just not much love for it. But Australian musicians are the ones that really get behind these large movements that make a lot of change, like the bushfires in Australia. Musicians raise so much money for the fire brigade and the the wildlife organizations and things like that. Black Lives Matter movements and it's just like musicians are kind of the first ones to really want to get behind and make change, and then it's like just the first thing to get shut down and the first thing to just get ignored as well. So, I mean, that just feels like where Australian music is at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty tough. Just like, yeah, when we're obviously that's why we have to be super vocal and put together like Thrillsong supergroup, because it's just like without, absolutely slamming the government on social media, it's like you just get zero attention.
I mean, with Thrillsong, what are the kind of outcomes that you're looking for with it? Is it just to raise awareness for it in general, or is there a kind of an end goal?
Not really. I mean, that was a quick thing, We just sort of like, everyone was quite fed up of this, and like our healthcare workers are just suffering as well, because like they're put under a lot of pressure and not getting the funding and support they need. So it was sort of to raise awareness there as well. But Australian musicians are quite, Australian music's talked about all across the world, in a lot of ways. Like, it's quite impressive music, I think. It's
so diverse as well.
Yeah. Like, you hear of Tame Impala or, I don't know, like it's a lot of people in the States would be like, yeah, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or Tame Impala, or Troye Sivan or Flume. Like, there's these huge, like the list is endless, and it's like we could be quite a large industry because we do get attention. But yeah, unfortunately not.
With this new EP that you're bringing out as well, that you've just brought out, I know in the past, I've read interviews with you where you spoke about with the debut record that you wrote like, I think 60 songs worth. You'll come up with a lot of material and kind of work it out from there. How much kind of came together in the few weeks that you spent with Idris working on this?
Yeah, more than that was on the 6 tracks for sure. There was maybe 10 things that got 10.
Yeah, maybe not even that much. I mean, we had like a limited amount of time with Idris, but there's definitely like one song that didn't make the record that was like fully finished, and then a few other ideas that we touched on. The song, when Idris went back to London, like the songs were quite different to what they are now. Like, we had to spend a bit of time on the tracks afterwards, but the main goal was like to get the bones of the song down and then get all of Idris's vocals in there as much as possible, so that we didn't feel like we didn't have enough. And then we could sort of like work on, we got our drummer in to do some drums, our keys player in to do some keys, and we just worked, for a few weeks, just like polishing it all up. So yeah, that was quite nice. But I don't know, I think if Idris had stayed, we would have either just made an album, so we made more songs, or we would have like made more and then ditched more or something. I don't know. But we definitely would have kept making music because, yeah, it was fun and he was super enthusiastic.
Was it different writing for someone else's voice? Like what you were saying there, that one of the, the main goals was to get the vocals down. How did you find it kind of writing around someone else's vocal timbre?
Yeah, I think, it's surprising, like listening to someone else's sort of way they approach a song. I feel like maybe with us, we have go-tos.
And we know what each other is potentially going to do, maybe.
So it's like with someone sort of like just, spit something completely different, it can catch you off guard in a pretty refreshing way.
Yeah, he'd have like this sort of blabbering. We'd have like a shared notes document, so we could all see what we were writing. We'd have this huge, messy paragraphs of words, and he wouldn't even worry about spelling or anything, so that just kind of didn't really know what it was. And then each vocal take was quite different. Like he would improvise around those words. Yeah, it was quite like impressive. His flow would be different each time as well. So like we just let him do a few takes, and like the more he did, get more and more into it, and like into this character that he'd sort of kind of put on for each thing. And then we would like change and amend things and be like, oh, what if it was more like this? Or you actually said this here, and it was all quite collaborative. But
definitely not two takes that were alike, really.
Yeah. I think what we learned from him was just like absolutely getting lost in the moment. Like we would just leave the recording going, because if the track was still playing, like that's when you'd really get some gold. He would just, I don't know. And what's not to like? There's that look at yourself, so. And that was just him, like, I don't know, at the end of a take, just going nuts. And what we probably have cut out is just us all cracking up with laughter. So like some of that stuff is just gold, and we just keep it.
Do you not sample one of them on What's Not to Like? You have that kind of bit where it goes into the distorted kind of audio that sounds like it's just coming out of the studio.
Yeah, of us just talking to each other.
Yeah.
We did that in 3 separate takes, but I think Idris just started like talking to us in the take,
Yeah.
Like, Ollie, Louis, what's not to like about us, eh? And then we just sort of put our vocal around it. Yeah.
The original one that was in that bridge was him ordering a cup of tea.
Oh, yeah.
At the local, coffee shop.
Could I have,
Come a bit Earl Grey. No, Earl Grey. A bit Cordi Elba.
Oh, yeah. It's sort of like that in Holiday.
Yeah.
Cup of Cordi Elba. Yeah.
Pint of Cordi Elba.
He always felt like that was a drink, Cordi Elba, to him. It was like, that's how he said that name to us first. It was after we played a show in Sydney. Backstage, he goes, hey, have you heard of that drink called Cordi Elba? And I was like, nah. He's, what do you reckon? What do you think of the name? And I was like, I mean, it's an awesome name, but like, is that seriously it? Like, is that taken? He was just sort of like, he was trying on that name with us, because he obviously wanted, the album to be called Cordi Elba, or this pseudo artist name to be called Cordi Elba. So
that's what actors do. They riff.
Yeah. Put on an act.
Was that the show that he came on stage and joined you at?
Yeah. Which we didn't quite know whether he wanted to or not. Like the week following up to that, it was like, oh yeah, we got this show on the weekend. He'd be like, oh cool, well, I should jump on stage, hey? And we'd be like, yeah, you should. And he'd go, yeah, well maybe I will then. It was like neither of us really knew, like, well, I mean, you can't, like, if you seriously want to, you can. Yeah. And then it's like, yeah, he was actually really stoked. I think he'd been thinking about it for a little while, but yeah, he was also quite nervous in a way. It's interesting seeing Idris Elba nervous. He was a bit nervous when he first got into the studio with us, and a bit
real pacey.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Guys. What if I say this on the mic? What do you think? What do you think if Bill Iver said this? Like, yeah, do it. Whatever you want. You're Idris Elba. Yeah, that was kind of cute in a lot of ways. So it's actually quite beautiful, because he is a confident man, but he's also just very passionate, very like genuine, and just really stoked to be doing what he's doing.
Kind of all the qualities you need to be a good songwriter.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if we like that though.
It's interesting you were talking about the way that he kind of surprised you vocally quite a lot, and you were kind of just, when you're working with someone else in the studio, you don't know what they're going to come up with, and it can come out of nowhere. One of the songs for me that I kind of felt that was Holy Moly. We have this really digital soundscape, and then he kind of comes in with this really raw, gravelly, kind of restrained vocal. How did the two elements of that develop, the soundscape and the vocal side to it? Because they do feel like they pair really nicely together, but at the same time, they're at very opposite sides of the spectrum, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. He just sort of did it. Some of these things he would just start doing. I mean, it's like that with music making with any of us doing any song. Sometimes the best stuff is just what you first feel. And he obviously felt like doing that low vocal. And the thing is, he kept talking about doing a high vocal on top of it. And I think he did do a few.
Falsetto.
Wrong, right? Like layering an octave above that in the verses. Modern day Robin Grattan wishes online or something like that with a bit more energy. But there's like there's not many people I know that can get that low with their voice. Like when he goes shit faced all the time, like I can never get that bottom note. And
he sends us these, you send him a text message and he'll always reply with like
an audio. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, sends an audio message back. And today I had my speakers on pretty loud because I was doing some music, and I played the audio and it just whacked me in the face. It was like hit the sub so hard.
Yeah.
He's got a big voice. Big man with a big voice.
When you're in this process, you're all contributing ideas lyrically. How long does it take for you to kind of lose sense of the ideas that you contribute and the ideas that he contributes, and it kind of just becomes this new one thing?
Yeah, true. I don't know. It's hard to know what, I guess if you open up the projects and like listen back to the first takes, it'd be interesting to see how different they were. But
I think with that like Holy Moly song, he just had that ching, 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 ching thing.
Oh, in the actual song demo.
And that's like all he had.
Yeah.
That was quite a quick one that came together. I think that was like
but I guess in turn, like lyrically, I don't know. It would, we are kind of constantly going back and forth, with song, just suggestions. And it was always very, very collaborative. So things were constantly changing and moving. And if you listen to earlier takes, the phrasing is probably very different. Apple Crumble, for instance, like the demo was just the piano and then the chorus in gibberish. And like he just took to the just how that felt from the start. I mean, it had bass and drums in there as well, but it was just the instrumental and just the chorus in gibberish. I think we put that together as like a Lime Cordiale song, but had no idea where that would possibly go because it sounds quite childlike and didn't necessarily felt like it would fit into the Lime Cordiale universe. But as soon as he got onto it, obviously felt enthusiastic straight away and just started belting out that verse, and it just felt so good, like in the exact same tone as it is now, enthusiastically writing those lyrics down quickly because it was obviously just pouring out of him. And then that story formed, and that was quite an easy song to put together. But, it just, his voice in those verses, it just fits it so well. I cannot imagine what we would have done, doing that. I actually put that up on TikTok as like an open verse challenge to see what anyone else would do in those verses, because it's like interesting to see people coming back there, because it's like, can't really imagine that not being Idris now.
What you're saying there, with the process of making this, moving at such pace, and it had such a momentum behind it when you were in the studio. At what point did you start to get perspective and kind of get a full picture of how the thing was going to fit together as a whole, and these 6 tracks were kind of going to sit?
I don't know. We really did. Like, it's just that naturally each of those songs were quite different. And towards the very end of his time, we had a few choices on which songs to concentrate on, because we had like a very reggae song. We had Holiday, but at that point was just like quite a house dance banger that he was working on and wanted to work on. And then we had another one that we're working on, which was like came from this Polynesian sample that I'd found. But yeah, so we had those 3 songs and we ended up going with Holiday because it just felt, it felt like we wanted to have a bit of Idris in Ibiza. DJing.
I think with that one as well, particularly with the way it starts, it's kind of possibly the most restrained song in the EP, and it kind of does give it a more of a balance overall. You're kind of leaning more into the quieter side of it.
You say Holiday is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is quite stripped back.
Particularly at the start.
At one point, it was like pretty
dancey.
Pretty full on from the top of the song.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think maybe it was just like a little too much.
Yeah.
For us. Not a little too much. Maybe it was just like, I think we just wanted space for him to maybe just, remix it, or someone to remix it.
Yeah. He was very good at like just letting us do the thing musically. He'd have suggestions sometimes, but he always had suggestions, but it was like we would sometimes start doing more guitar-y things and start working on the track and then realize that we should just be concentrating on Idris's vocals and melodies and things. So we actually had to do the music quite quickly. We had to be like, all right, what if we go to this chord and this chord, so that we could like, all right, cool, let's get some more Idris vocals down and work on these lyrics and melodies. But
I think the great thing about that is we were quite quick, especially initially, because we thought he was maybe just like he'd
lose interest.
He would lose interest.
Or go, or get busy.
And there was moments where he'd be on his phone. You're like, oh, he's obviously, he's got 1,000 emails to reply to right now. But he would never, be responding to people. He was always just
working on lyrics.
Yeah. Writing.
Yeah, that was always crazy. I just don't understand how, I feel like I find it hard to not be on emails and answering phone calls in the studio, but he would seriously like never be on his phone. He had 2 phones as well. No idea why. We had 2 phones and we're just like, I feel like they were constantly buzzing and things. He would just never care. It's like he was completely into just doing what we're doing in the room and probably people trying to contact him the whole time. Yeah.
I guess you must find a way to tune that out or it would just drive you insane.
Yeah, you have to. Hey. Yeah, I'm trying to get better at that. Yeah, if you're in music mode, just tune out, ignore people.
When it comes to guitars as well, Ollie, I was reading an interview with you where you spoke about the fact that, you'll often go home and work on a guitar part for a few hours and kind of build it together. Where did you find the space for that in the studio this time around when it was kind of so fast moving? Was it easy to kind of find a place to do that?
We didn't really have the time. That was, I guess with this one, it was a bit more on the spot. Yeah. And I don't know, it was like quite just a creative space. And I don't know, we were in a very good space creatively that we were just quite, I don't know, things were coming out that just were good in our opinion at the time. And it didn't feel like we were getting bogged down too much. Yeah, like there's that guitar line that goes through the verses of Holy Moly, which, I don't know, just visualize something to be kind of weird and, bendy and a bit abnormal. And so that just sort of came out. The guitar line in like What's Not to Like, did that guitar line come first or was it more the la, 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 la?
Yeah, I
think it was more the chanting.
Copy the melody.
Yeah, so that was a melody and we decided to just sort of make it a fuzzy guitar line. But
it's really strokesy, that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it does have, but like strokes are a huge influence for us. So that's cool. But there was not much, there was a little bit of going home and working on things just to like push the sessions forward so that, we could be ready to put down more of his vocals the next time we're in and things like that. But yeah, it was very much just like go, go, go.
Yeah, we were the lazy ones compared to Idris for sure.
Yeah, one point at 10 p.m. at night or something, it was like we were just finishing up on a session. Could have been later, could have been midnight. And I just said like, oh, when can you get back in again? And he's like, oh, okay, so tomorrow I've got a shoot that starts at midday. So, I mean, I could be in here at like 6 a.m. tomorrow. And we were just like, nah. It was like incredible. It's just, every moment just wanted to do it. And I think that came from like, I think he has a few regrets of not doing more music earlier on in life. He always did his DJing, but his wife told us that like, well, she said, it's so good that he's doing this because I think it's like filling a hole that he, you know, sometimes he feels like he's in the wrong industry. And we're just like, yeah, okay. It must be tough being like a major Hollywood actor, but a struggling actor. But he also told us that, you know, like he got COVID right at the start. He was in the States, and it was when like you didn't know anyone that had COVID. And so he got locked away, and he just thought he was asymptomatic, like nothing, it didn't feel anything. But, you know, he just thought he was going to die. He was actually pretty scared. And it would have been scary back then when you had no idea what it was. And so it was kind of like he had a bit of an epiphany of being like, when he came out of that, like, oh shit, what are the things that I really want to do? And I think music making was something that he felt like he hadn't done enough of. So that's why he'd really, you know, when he came to Australia, he was like, okay, when I'm doing this film, I want to be doing some music making as well. And I think he's doing that back in England as well. He wants to be in the studio more.
For you guys, you know, looking ahead, what do you feel like you've gained from this process? What have you kind of learned from it about your own sound and the way that you work, and what do you feel like you'll carry forward from it?
It's probably given us a bit of confidence, like for Idris Elba to be impressed with our musicianship is quite nice, you know, because like being like we knew who he was beforehand, right? And it's like when you know who someone is, but you're like you don't know them personally, they're just like anyone's like a godlike character in a way, you know, like you think of any celebrity or musician that you look up to, they're just like this godlike character because you don't know them. You just think they're sort of perfect. And they come in and they're like impressed with what you're doing and impressed in the studio. And sometimes you feel like, oh, you know, can we make an album with Idris, or has he worked with other like amazing artists that will, and he won't be impressed with how we do stuff. But like the fact that he was, and he wanted to keep doing stuff, and he felt like he was learning from us as well. Like that, I think we got a bit of confidence out of that. Can be a bit more open with our music making. Don't have to like hide away and feel like fakes or something.